Hello, everyone. Well, it is March the 19th, 2017, Sunday. It is day 16 of TowerGate. Here's what we know this morning. Well, this is Sunday morning, so of course we have the Sunday morning talk shows. I have just reviewed clips from most of those programs, and it appears that the narrative hasn't changed. We know that yesterday or late Friday night, the DOJ, Department of Justice, gave the information that was requested of them regarding wiretapping, surveillance, and all that type of stuff. So that obviously we'll learn what was in, as much as they'll talk about it. We shouldn't assume that whatever the DOJ is going to give to Congress, that the Congress is actually going to tell us what the DOJ gave them. We'll probably get a subdued version of what they learned. And on the Senate side, I expect something completely different. On the Senate side, I just think that they'll do what those people do who are so deeply embedded in the establishment. That on the Senate side, I think that they will do everything they can to protect the secrets of the deep state and the things that they do. So I look for just a major cover-up on the Senate side. I think they'll spend most of their time talking about the Trump and his people close to him and their relationship with the Russians. I think they'll spend very little time on the surveillance of Trump Tower, Trump, or any of his people. Comey will be testifying. I don't expect to get much truth out of him. I don't expect that they'll ask the questions that I would ask. I think that they'll give him plenty of room to walk around that minefield without blowing himself up. And I don't think any of those in the Senate want to put their neck in a noose either. So that's what I see happening there. On the House side, of course, we'll see how much of what the DOJ gave them that they'll actually talk about, and we'll actually see whether or not the DOJ, and again, with the DOJ, if there was surveillance and it was done without warrants, that would be illegal. So we have to assume that they're going to probably show something that there was warrants or something like that. If it turns out that they say there were no warrants, no surveillance, and it's all, a fairy tale, that's going to raise some very interesting questions, because we know for a fact that Michael Flynn was picked up. We know for a fact that Manafort and Stone and others like that have talked about the fact that they were surveilled. So it'll be very interesting to see if they try to pull that off. I don't think they can or will try to go that route. Ultimately, I think what's going to happen with both sides of the Congress, the Senate, and the House, just as I said 2 or 3 weeks ago in a video, I think that it will be a cover-up operation. They will try to limit or minimize the damage done to the deep state. They will play defense. And I think that what they're going to try to do, they just want this to go away. I think for the most part, a lot of Republicans want this to go away. A lot of Democrats want this to go away as far as the allegations of wiretapping. So I think what you're going to try to see is exactly that. They're going to try to sweep this thing away as much as possible. And the best way to do that is to give neither side a real victory. They'll come out and say, yes, there are some connections with Flynn and the Russians, or Manafort and the Ukrainians, which they're friends with the Russians or what have you, but we really see nothing here. So I think they'll come out and give the all clear on whether or not Trump is involved with the Russians. I think they'll do the same on the other side and say, yeah, we looked into their surveillance, whether or not Obama was surveilling Trump or his people or the campaign. I think they'll say, yeah, we really didn't find anything here either. So I think that that's what the goal is of these hearings that we'll be seeing coming up, will be to sweep as much of it under the rug as possible, cover up as much as possible, try to protect the deep state, try to protect the FBI, the intelligence agencies. So basically a cover-up as much as possible. They all want to make this thing go away. Trump does not want to make this thing go away. He seems to want to continue to stir the pot. So we have to assume that he's got something. And as I said also in other videos, I don't believe that anything will come out of the Congress. No one will be, there'll be no major truth bombs. There'll be no major, events where someone's going to be held accountable. There'll be no criminal charges recommended to the Attorney General. Nothing like that I think will happen at all from the congressional hearings. It will be a big cover-up, sweep everything under the rug, try to pacify both sides, and try to make this thing go away. I think that that's going to be the goal. Like I said a couple weeks ago, that I believe that this is exactly what would happen. And I said if Trump wants to prove the allegations that he was surveilled, that he's going to have to do that from within his administration. He's going to have to go to Sessions and see about maybe appointing a special prosecutor, someone outside the swamp, someone who will come in and do a real investigation. I think that's the only way it gets done. Now maybe Trump's playing that card, but maybe what he wanted to do was throw it into the Congress, as I've suggested earlier, so that he could get people to come up, go under oath, testify, and incriminate themselves. And then once the hearings in the Congress try to sweep everything under the rug, which I assume Trump and his people around him know will probably happen, at least they've got people on record as perjuring themselves. At which point he then says, okay, well, we learned some things from the hearings, but I don't think we really got to the bottom of it. At which point Sessions appoints a special prosecutor to look into this, and at which point they at least have people on record, and they have possibly some necks in the noose. I just don't think Trump's going to let it go unless he literally has nothing, and the entire time this has all been a big bluff, or that the only thing he's got is that, you know, the newspapers were reporting this, or what have you. So we just don't know what hand Trump is holding. No one does. So I think that's where we're going to see this thing play out. I wouldn't expect much to come out of these hearings. I'll certainly be watching them every day and be reporting on them every day. It'll be interesting to see, though, if they the big question in the Senate side that they appear to want to get answered pretty much up front in the hearings is, was there any type of warrants requested by the FBI, the Department of Justice, to do any surveillance, or was there not? Sort of because there's accusations there were, people saying there weren't. I think what they want to do is establish whether or not there was or there was not. I think that will be very, very hard for the FBI or the Justice Department to cover up. If in fact there were warrants, there's going to be paper trails. I expect, again, as I've said before, what will happen is they'll probably say, well, there was surveillance warrants on, to look into Manafort or Stone or some other people. We were looking at Russian agents. We were investigating or surveilling the ambassador, the Russian ambassador, and some of these people in the Trump organization or administration or what have you, his campaign team, they just got caught up in it. I believe that this is the best way for the FBI to wiggle off the hook. I believe on the House side, they look like they're going after the leakers, which I believe that they could have some effectiveness there. So I think that it looks like they don't even want to take up the issue of whether or not there was surveillance on Trump by Obama or whatever. It looks like unless they get some actual evidence of that they are not going to go down that road. They're just going to dance around it. This is the way it looks to me, like this is all going to play out to make it all go away. And I just don't think Trump's going to do that unless he really has nothing other than the media reports, in which case he'd probably be very well advised to let it go away. So anyhow, it's going to be a very interesting day tomorrow for sure. We'll at least always find out, but it's just my guess at this point, looking at their behavior this morning and throughout the past week or so, that this is going to be just typical what we see always in Washington, which is the establishment protecting itself, protecting the deep state, these agencies protecting themselves, and everyone trying to get out of this with as little damage as possible. And I think to minimize the damage to all parties, they are not going to make the Democrats happy by coming out and saying no, there's no connection with Trump and the Russians, and they of course will not make Trump very happy by coming out and saying no, we found no evidence that the Obama administration was surveilling you. So that's why I say that I think that's where it's going, and I think that Trump is going to, if Trump wants to see prove his case that he was being surveilled or spied on or what have you, I think that's going to have to come from him, from his administration, his Department of Justice, and they're probably going to need an independent counsel to be able to do it and actually get the kind of result that Trump may want, assuming he really has some evidence, which we'll find out. He just may be the best poker player in the world. Maybe he just wanted to change the narrative. So if he did, if he wanted to do that, he certainly accomplished that. But people will not be real happy with him if he, as it turns out, he really has nothing other than the media reports. but we'll see how that's all going to play out. So I'll be back tomorrow, and after 5 o'clock, I'll probably do the video. I'll want to try to see where those hearings go. I don't know when they convene and when they end, but usually by 5 o'clock those hearings will be over. So anyway, we'll take a look at tomorrow. We should learn some things tomorrow, at least about the warrants, the surveillance, and we might even find out on the House side who unmasked the Flynn call with the Russian ambassador. Those would be major developments, and they'll certainly be the springboard for where everything goes from that point forward. And I'm not expecting any bombshells at this point. This thing could go on for quite a while. Alrighty, so that's day 16, Obamagate, and we'll see when the hearings start tomorrow where it goes. So y'all have a good day. Goodbye.